We are going to wait for 3 minutes more. Okay, we are going to start. Welcome to the seminar with IT pioneers and leaders. Today we have as our special guest, Donald Knuth. All questions answered. Acknowledgements. We would like to thank Dr. Donald for accepting our invitation. Dr. Julio Noriega, Dean of the School of Engineering. Dr. Joaquin Acevedo, Dean of the School of Engineering in North Region. Dr. Alfredo Galvan, Director of the School of Engineering. Engineer Luis Ricardo Salgado, Director of the Computer Department. Engineer Rafael Dávalos, Director of the Computer Engineer Track. Donald Knuth. Donald Knuth is a computer scientist and professor emeritus at Stanford University. He is the distinguished author of The Art of Computer Programming, a continued 4-volume opus that is his life's work. Knuth's honor include receiving the following: the ACM doing work, the IEEE Japan Medal, and the Faraday Medal. We appreciate your time and effort to be with us. Welcome, Dr. Donald Knuth.
Here we go. Aha, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, well, hello. Thank you for your warm welcome. And I just want to start by, can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I want to start by saying that the idea for all questions answered, I learned when I was a professor more than 50 years ago at Caltech. And my friend, the physicist Richard Feynman, used to end every one of his classes. The final day of class was called all questions answered. The students did not have to come to class if they didn't want to, but if they came, that he would answer answer any remaining questions that they had, and I thought that was a wonderful idea, so I started doing it in my classes too. So I started at Caltech and then later at Stanford University. The last day of class was all questions answered, and the students could ask a question on any subject except religion, politics, or the final exam. Well, today we don't have final exam, if someone wants to ask me a question about religion or politics, they can, but I know a lot more about computer science, so it'd be best if so I can only answer. I mean, I can answer any question, but I can only give a good answer to something that I know about. The other thing is, the one kind of question I hope you don't ask me is to predict the future, because I've never been able to get anything right when predicting the future. But I know I know a lot about the past and nothing about the future, and so chances are you're going to get a much better answer if you ask me something about the past or anyway. Don't ask me what's going to the stock market is going to crash tomorrow or something like that. So, any questions?
Okay, please use the Zoom function for raise your hand, and I will call you, right?
Okay, so can you hear me fine?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, so I know it's a very cliche question, but what inspired you to pursue a career in algorithms and computer science?
What inspired me to what?
To pursue a career in algorithms and computer science.
Okay, well, it was different back then because I probably didn't hear the word algorithm until I was 20 years old, and there was no such thing as computer science until 1965, when I was already had a PhD in mathematics. So it was something that that I chose, but without knowing a name of knowing what it was called. And so what I think happened is that by some quirk of fate, everybody when they grow up, they're exposed to different, you're exposed to something different than your sister was and your parents and so on. And whatever happened when I was growing up, anyway, that shapes your brain as to how you think about things. And so some things, based on your experiences, some things are easier for you than others. And for some reason, my brain developed in a way that made it easy for me to understand computational processes. And I learned later on that those were called algorithms. And so I don't. There's no great name for it, but it's convenient to call it to say that I was a geek. So anyway, by the time I was a teenager, my brain was somehow was organized in a way that would have resonated with computers if there had been computers. But computers, I was when I was starting college. There were maybe I don't know, less than 100 computers in the world. And it was 1956. But there were 1,000 in the world by the time I was at end of my first year of college. But anyway, it was very new at the time. I saw this machine behind a window, and their lights were flashing, and it looked pretty interesting. And I got somebody to explain it to me. And so he gave me a manual how to use this thing called a computer. And I looked at the manual, and the manual was pretty stupid. I mean, the guy who wrote the manual didn't realize that there was a better way to solve the problem than he was explaining in the manual. And so I said, wait a minute, I'm just a first year college student, and I know how to answer the problem better than what the user manual said. Maybe I have a talent for this. And so basically the motivation was I found out that it was easy for me to do things. And for whatever reason, I became a geek. Now, and I think it's held pretty steady through my career that the people that about one person out of every 50 developed so if you have a town that has 10,000 people in it, well, maybe maybe 200 of them are maybe 20 of them are really good at computing. And so what I say is, I couldn't, I probably couldn't ever succeeded in being, well, certainly not as an athlete, but there are other fields like lawyer and stuff that I wouldn't have been very good at. But I did find that I had this talent in this one area, so that pushed me. And so if you're one of these 50, one of these 2%, or one of these 1 in 50, then you sort of have a responsibility to the world, because the world needs our skills. I mean, you're nodding your head because that means I can, even though I'm speaking a foreign language, you're understanding me. That's great.
Yes, sir.
They said that Professor Norbert Wiener used to need somebody in his classroom that would nod their head, because he would say something and then he would wait until somebody nodded their head before he said the next thing. And once he said something that was so esoteric that it took 15 minutes before anybody nodded their head. But then he went on. But anyway, thank you for the feedback.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pilar.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I hear you, yes.
Hi, thank you very much for your time here. A few months ago, you wrote in your homepage an answer to a question that Sir Jeffnet made to you, that it should be our role as computer scientists to help dealing with today's problems. Well, I would like if you could tell us something about our role as teachers today. The big problem that we have now related to fake knowledge, not just fake news, but the generation of automatic fake knowledge.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's always been there's always been this tendency where people and we see it in universities, of course, but also in life that many students are not interested in learning the subject, but in getting a credential. They want to be able to, why do students cheat? So that they can pass the exam, so that they can get a job. But they don't realize that when they cheat, they're cheating themselves because they aren't learning what's going to carry them through to get a good job and to at the end of the day to be satisfied with their life. How can you be satisfied with your life if you know you're a fraud? Maybe it's possible for some people to do that, but anyway, so I don't know an answer except to explain explain this fallacy and to sort of be a role model where people can see that you are not claiming to be something that you aren't, and also teaching people how to be skeptical of self-appointed prophets.
Okay, thank you. That's a very good question. Answer. Thank you very much.
That was a very good question.
Okay, now Gerardo.
Hi. Yeah, thank you very much for your time and for the opportunity. I have a similar question to the previous one regarding we as educators of future computer scientists. I'm a big fan of yours, and I know you can transmit your enthusiasm and love for this. I would like you to give us some advice about how to motivate future generations to transmit this the interest of the love or the love to this field. What would be your advice to really motivate younger people?
My advice would be for people to learn about themselves, to learn whether or not, for example, I don't advise anybody to say, I'm going to force myself to become a geek. I'm advising them to say, what experiences have I had that make certain things easier for me than others? Let me try something. Does it work? Is something way beyond my grasp, or is it close? Where I think if with a little extra work, it's going to be for me. I had various signals. For example, I wince at the sight of blood. I knew very early that I would never be good as a surgeon in the hospital. So my advice is really, I'm not trying to to force somebody to be in the field that they weren't cut out to be. I think everybody should learn about themselves, but I know that there are a large number of people who have this gift of resonating with computers, and I see that there's an unlimited future for that because it's not something everybody can learn. It's something that you really have morphed into during your life. I guess I repeated the same thing, but my role as a computer scientist is not to bring in as many possible students as possible, but really to reach all the students who belong. And I don't want to steal students away from something where they belong else. Well, historic. I mean, we have so many new experiences now for young people that it might very well be that more than 1 in 50 are going to resonate because we have a lot more different kind of stimuli for children now. I mean, certainly video games, for example, and other things. So that might reflect the balance. But whatever it is, I don't think I know too many projects where they said somebody's intelligent, therefore he's good at programming. That's not true. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Gildardo Sanchez, please.
Yes, thanks a lot. And before going to my very likely dumb question, I would like to thank you for what I think it is the most beautiful and captivating book I have had in discrete math in my whole life. I really like it when I had to use it in my master's. And my question is related with this. We are facing quantum computing. And do you think it would be necessary for you to write maybe a new book on the art of computing, or a chapter at least related with the algorithms that are needed for this new paradigm of computing, and why? Thank you.
Okay. I'm so glad you like that book because it's really a manifesto of the way I like to do mathematics and okay. So now, but I've already promised to write more books than I can finish in a lifetime. So it's not going to be something that I can do. But you asked me to write about parallelism, and really, I'm a sequential geek. I'm not a parallel geek. In other words, I know probably Juan, who's sitting right next to me, is going to be able to write a book on parallelism 10 times better than I could ever do. So I also believe that I write a book when I think that I have a message, but not because I think the message is needed, but because some things have my name on and some things do not. But when they have my name on, or even close to having my name on, then sometimes I even think a responsibility. For example, I learned in the 70s that printing technology had gone downhill when they changed the machines from using metal to using first they used photography, and then they used pixels. But at that point, things started. The quality started going bad. But as soon as all of a sudden I saw an example where pixels could actually produce a good result. It was just bad software. And so then I said, well, gosh, pixels are zeros and ones, and zeros and ones is my life. The world needs somebody who's good at zeros and ones in order to straighten out the printing industry, or to bring it back to where it was before. And so it was my responsibility to study pixels. And so, okay, I hope you understand. Then I started writing books about that because that was something where I did have a message that where I felt kind of a call to do it.
Fernando Carrillo, please.
Fernando.
Thank you. Hey, doctor. Nice to meet you. I have a quick question for you. When was the last time that you did an hexadecimal certificate? I know you no longer do checks, so wondering about the certificate.
The last time I did what kind of a certificate?
The hexadecimal certificate that you give to people that points error or something to add to your books.
Yeah, I wrote 31 checks. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And the total was about $500. So you figure, let's see, $256 for every error, and so $5 for 2 errors. So $500 would be 200 errors. So even not, one of those are for errors that were reported since last September. So what's that? 200 errors since between September and February. The way I write my books is sort of the maximum chance for making an error. You can write a book where you make only vague statements and you don't cover a lot of ground. But in the art of computer programming, concrete math, every page there's more than 100 ways I could be wrong. I could have well, I have to admit that when I was a college student, I didn't get 100 on all my exams. Or sometimes would get 99 or 90. You make 98 out of 100, and so that means every page I can have. I probably have 2 or 3 errors, and there's 4,000 pages in the art of computer programming. So little by little, we get rid of the errors. But in this last round, somebody in England found an error in volume 2 that had been there since the very beginning, the very first printing in 1969. So for 50 some years, nobody had read that before or checked it. But that's the current state of it. I have a question for you. What are those beautiful ceramics behind you on the shelf? I see something behind you in the cupboard. Oh.
That's my door. That's the front door of my house.
No, I mean, there's a shelf that has...
Oh, those are a bunch of Funkos, Batmans, Thanos, and toys. My books are upstairs. Your books. Yeah. I have the 5 of them.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, no, it's like, okay. I like toys too. In other words, I'm very lucky now that a young woman is visiting me. She's planning to write a biography, and our tentative title for the biography is Theory and Practice and Fun, and that sort of sums me up. Whatever I do is a combination of 3 things. I don't know the difference between them, sort of, but anyway, theory, practice, getting and fun, the pleasure that comes in, and so okay. But I'm glad you told me about your toys too.
Okay, now Claudia, please.
Hi. Thank you for your time. I just wanted to ask, in your opinion, what role do ethics play in computing, and how do you think we should approach ethical dilemmas in technology?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. What you asked.
What role do ethics play in computing?
Ethics.
Ethics.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'm glad to see the emphasis on ethics now. It's sort of at Stanford we try to include it in all the courses, and our current chair, Marin, published a book a year or two ago with some philosophers where they take a close look at everything. Personally, I'm extremely worried about the autonomous robots. I mean, autonomous weapons, for example, because now it's easier for people to do massive harm. And so instilling a feeling that so that people can understand how wrong it is to destroy other people's lives, and I mean, exploiting them is bad enough, but you're going even beyond exploiting to cruelty, and I've seen that's unfortunately becoming more and more possible now. So it's more. So we have to be more and more on our guard, because since it wasn't so much a problem when it took when you had to be rich in order to exploit somebody else. Now you can do it. Just by chat. And you can bully people more easily, etc. So at all levels, we have to instill the knowledge of the upside and the downsides of bad behavior.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, now there's a question in chat by Juan Patricio Carrizales. It says, what do you think about the role of computers in mathematics? For example, the use of proof assistance to verify theorems.
What was the example again?
Okay, again. For example, the use of proof assistance to verify theorems.
No, I'm sorry.
No?
You said something.
Okay.
You said something about Turing.
No, it says, what do you think about the role of computers in the role of computer?
Yes,
in mathematics. Yeah.
Mathematics. Yes. Well, they apply sort of almost all branches of mathematics, and vice versa. Mathematics applying to computing. So it's very. There's a bit of a question as to is mathematics part of computer science, or is computer science part of mathematics? And I could argue either way. But what I really think is that I can feel that to me, some things I do are sort of pure computer science and only lightly mathematics. Other things I do are pure mathematics and only lightly computer science. but I'm not sure if I can explain. But the things that are pure computer science to me are much more finite and not continue and discrete. While the more things that are more mathematics are highly infinite and continuous but the main interactions. Okay, so when I've applied almost every branch of mathematics at some time to programming, except the math that I did in my PhD thesis, and that was a finite geometries, and although I could use finite geometries in algorithms, it turned out that random structures are easier and just as good for almost all purposes. So anyway, there's application of mathematics to computers, but the other way around, where computing helps with pure mathematical problems is growing all the time. Also, because now we can. I mean the systems for automatic calculation allow us to do symbolic algebraic calculations that were unheard of before, and it used to take incredible amounts of time and very error prone. Now it's routine. But also we're proving theorems that where the proof has so many cases, as far as we know, some things are true but don't have simple proofs, and we can prove that there are true statements that don't have simple proofs, but nobody knows whether or not the important true statements are in this category. But anyway, we know a lot of things now could only have been proved because computers help to go through all the complexities that's involved. Human beings, our brains are not sharp enough at things like that. So all the way through, I see it as a symbiotic relationship. But one last thing I wanted to say is that there's a difference between computer science, mathematics, and things like physics, chemistry, biology, because astronomy, the other sciences are based on studying nature, studying what exists in the universe. But mathematics and computer science, they're things that are made up by human beings. We make up the rules in mathematics. We make up the rules in computer science, and we can create artificial worlds with any axioms, with any properties we want. But physicists have to know what the physical world does. Biologists have to know what exists in biology. So the that's the main connection between computer science and mathematics is that we're the ones that are not based on discovering something given to us, but where we get to be the creator of the whole subject, which makes it a lot easier for us, of course.
Okay, now Mitch.
Hello, Dr. Knuth.
Hello.
You have mentioned that Euler is one of your favorite mathematicians. And so if Euler were giving an all questions answered Zoom talk today, what question or questions would you like to ask him?
Okay, well, how did he do it? I mean, how did you get through the day? You had 12 kids. You were blind, and you probably had many competing thoughts. How did you decide what that you're actually, what were you going to do at 9 o'clock in the morning, and how do you manage talking to all the people who are asking your advice? I mean, he didn't have to worry about email, but anyway, he had people took me to archives where I got to see his actual notebooks, and he I had in my hands one of the books that he kept by his desk, where he would write the formulas that he wanted to refer to, for example, and so on. But you realize how many that his publications are collected works are still not finished, and it runs to I think 200 volumes so far, and he had to he had to write things out with pen, and handle all the correspondence besides his large family and the blindness and so on. And I only know a small fraction of his work because he wrote about questions of differential equations. My main question though is how did he spend his days, and what was his, how did he succeed in not sleeping at night? And I suppose I would be that he actually spent most of his time smoking or something like that. I don't know anything about his personal life, but I know he had.
Okay, and now Naomi.
Hello, Professor. It is a privilege to be here with you. And I would like to know, during the completion of your works, can you tell us about a particularly challenging problem that you worked on and how you approached getting to a solution?
Okay, well, I'm glad you refer to the completion of my work, but that's, but it won't be complete until I realize that I'm starting to go senile, and it takes me. I suppose I could work faster than before, but I'm working right now. I'm writing 3-4 programs every week, and I've been working very hard for almost a year on the problem of how much to look ahead when you're solving constraint satisfaction problems. And so, I mean, so what was the hardest thing that I worked on? Well, over the years, there have been lots of problems where I finally decided, well, I'm not going to get it. I better give up, and I put it aside. And a few times I would wake up a couple of weeks later, and somehow my brain had kept working on it, and I got an idea, a new way to approach the problem, and so on. But probably the hardest technical problem I ever solved was my study of what we would call the birth of the giant component in a random graph, and that turned out to lead to a giant paper that was filled an entire volume of filled an entire issue of a journal. That has me worried is what's the best way to explain the question of domain consistency checking in constraint satisfaction problems. So I'm going to spend a week at Berkeley in April talking to the experts on this, and I'm going to tell them why I think that the existing literature is wrong, and I can't reproduce the results that other people claim, and so I'm working hard to continue telling the story correctly as well as I can. Thanks for the question.
Now, Juan Santiago, please.
Hi, I'd like to ask you, as an author, what's your opinion on illegally uploaded PDF textbooks?
The recently uploaded what?
PDF textbooks.
PDF check. Okay, I got the PDF.
Checkbooks.
Textbooks. Oh yeah, PDF textbooks. Okay, if people try to read my books on Kindle, it's usually a disaster because it doesn't adapt to. I consider Kindle is great for things like novels, and you can get into some technical stuff. But we start getting into formulas. It gets worse, and then you start having computer programs, and it gets worse yet. And most of the publishers don't realize that computer science books are much harder than other kinds of books. They aren't the programs themselves. They just want to market things, and so they send out a contract to somebody who's going to write a PDF version of a book, and sometimes it's done incredibly badly. But now, in my own case, my publisher found a new supplier that was able to do a very good job on the new volume 4B, so very soon there's going to be another printing of volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4A, and at that time we're going to put out a new PDF edition, and we're getting warmed up for that day, and for some reason the people who did volume 1 came. That was 100 megabytes. The people who did volume 4A have a PDF file that was only, I think, 13 or 14 megabytes, and the one for 4A is much better. The cross links are better, and even though it seemed like there was the same company supplying both PDF files, the person who did volume 1 made a botch of it compared to the one who did volume 4A. It's not easy. Now my friend Martin, goodness, I just call him Martin, in Munich, starts with R. Ruckert, Martin Ruckert, has a new system that is going to solve this problem. It does better than PDF. It sort of creates PDF on the fly, adjusting to your phone, and all the equations and computer programs and mathematics all. His typeset beautifully. He's re-implemented text inside his PDF presenting system. And what's the key? What's the keyword for it? It starts with the letter M. Anyway, he's so you look up Martin Ruckert. He's got some preliminary examples of his system. and he had to take a year. He had to take a semester off last year, but he's back. He was thrown for a loop because the printing last year. So he's got to implement all of their stuff too for his system. But anyway, there's hope for the future that good PDF things are available. And I mentioned a good version of the new bond 4B. I enjoy very much going through the electronic edition. I like taking any word or any part of a word and just doing a search for it. So I look around the room and I see something on the, and there will be, say axiom. Okay, so let me look and do a search for axiom, and I say, where did the word axiom appear in this book? And it takes me to different exercises and pages, and it's sort of a great way to explore the book. It's like the internet disease where you start browsing and you keep clicking on something that interests you, and so ebook gives you this benefit of PDF that's not so easy when you're using a hard copy. On the other hand, with the hard copy, I'm very comfortable, writing notes in it and saying, see page something, and making my own personal comments in my hard copy, and so I like to have both. You guys are asking great questions.
Now, Mauro Martinez.
Hello, Professor. I wanted to ask you, how do you make sure you stay up to date with the progress of science, computer science, and technology?
How do I keep up with it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
how fast it goes.
I'm not sure that I do, but I'll tell you how I try to do it. I used to be an editor of lots of journals, which meant that I got free copies of the journal. And so every week every 7 days I would get 8 journals in the mail. That would, if I were to read them when they came in, it would be hopeless because I would never get anything done. So I put nowadays I don't get so many journals. I get I get SIAM Review, I get SIAM Journal on Computing, I get SIAM Journal on Discrete Mathematics, I get Journal of Algorithms, ACM Transactional Algorithms, ACM Journal, ACM Communications, Acta Informatica. Okay, so it's a few that I still am on the editorial boards, and they still send me. And some of these I subscribe, and every 6 months I read them in batch mode. So I shut down everything else I'm doing, I still eat meals and talk to my wife occasionally, but I got to read these journals, and I don't just. It's important to me to have the hard copy. Seeing an abstract is not enough. I have to look and see what illustrations are there. The abstract of a paper doesn't tell what techniques are used in the paper. The abstract just says what the theorems are. I want to know what techniques are being used because it's important to me to know if I've forgotten to explain a technique in my book. So I have to study. I have to see what's in the article, and so I page through them, I don't have to read every article, of course, because some of them are in quantum computing. I'm never going to write about quantum computing. and so I'm not good at parallelism, so most of the time I don't follow something that's not going to have a sequential component. And so then I go through and I find the articles that are related to something that I do want to write about in the future in the art and computer program, or I maybe see something that means that it's obsolete, something I've already written, and so then I make a note of that and go back to it. So the answer is then batch mode is better than swap in, swap out. But I do try to keep up with the literature, and then every Thursday I go to our Stanford's theory lunch with students, and so I hear what my colleagues are doing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, now Hector, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Hector. Hi.
Okay, hello. This is a very basic question, I'm sorry, but I am really interested in your opinion. It's a question, a prevalent question along the long history of computer science education. And the question is this one. How old should someone be to start learning programming? And most important, which language or at least paradigm will be best for them to begin with?
Okay. So, all right. Well, what age to begin? This is I only have experience with my own grandchildren, and I know, so I see examples all over the map. I mean, Minsky and Papert, we're getting 2 years old, 2-year-olds to use turtle geometry, and there's one of my grandchildren could be considered a geek, and he I believe he began with Python, maybe 8 years ago or something like that. But and I looked at a couple of his early programs and things, but I'm not sure what he does now. But the main thing was I would have wished that he could learn it, however, which was way against the modern philosophy, which is what I call bottom up. I would, I was told, well, imagine that you have something where there are 100 slots for numbers, and they're numbers 00 to 99. And then you're also allowed to give instructions and say add what's in slot 1 to what's in slot 2 and put the answer in slot 4. Okay, and then in other words, it's much more like basic. You said you were going to ask me a basic question. Well, that's the way basic was. In other words, you were actually using both the statements, but you were also just saying very, very basic things. You weren't presented with anything fancy that understood parentheses or algebra even. It was just you understood the idea of following instructions exactly. That doesn't appear in any other walk of life. People don't. It was always a joke in the early TV shows when they had Rhoda the robot, when she would actually obey exactly what her master said. The idea of giving instructions that a machine can understand is a huge learning experience that has to be learned first before you can do anything else. Well, that's why I recommend a bottom-up thing and then learn shortcuts for it later. And in every science, they have so-called empirical and theoretical versions of the theory, or the theoretical physics and experimental physics and so on. And but people, when physicists learn physics, probably learned very basic things about physics. I think they did some experiments with a radio or friction or something like that, where they could see what physics was, and from that they built an intuition. Later on, they learned theoretical physics, and they said, well, theoretical physics, I can go so much faster now. I can take giant steps instead of baby steps because I have this theory. So when I teach my students, I'm not going to, I don't want them to waste their time doing baby steps. I'm going to teach them the theory right away, because then they'll be able to go so much further. It's a total mistake. You need something you don't build a house from the ceiling down. You have a foundation, and then you add to that. So my recommendation is to teach that students get a feel for what it means to follow instructions exactly, and not to have something magical that they can't see how it could be made from a kit at first. But now our Professor Patrick, he so much enjoys teaching the class at Stanford that uses Raspberry Pi to develop stuff. This is not your question; it is for little kids. But so there was this very nice movement started by a lady in oh goodness, it's not Latvia. It's right next door. Ron,
Estonia?
What?
Estonia?
Estonia, yeah, Estonia, right, yeah. Her name is Valentina somebody. Anyway, she came up with the Beaver Project, which reaches kids in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade level, and has them thinking about discrete things. So the pixels and grids and things like that become very familiar to them, and the kind of models that we use for computer programming. And that has been extremely successful around the world. I don't know, not so much in America as everywhere else. So look up Beaver Project and see what you can find in there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Knuth. We have a few more questions, but before we proceed, have to continue answering them.
I'm sorry, but Zoom interrupted you in the middle of what you were saying.
Okay, we have, but before we proceed, may I ask how much time you have to continue answer that?
Or I can go on for another 2 or 3 hours, but then I'll probably want to eat lunch.
Okay, so we are going to pass to the next question for Luis Barajas.
Hello, Professor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Chicago. Luis.
Great city. So yeah, this is a question related to one of the easiest problems in computer science history that I just want you to ask you that, do you think that it could be ever solved or have any progress, or do you know about any near solution?
All right. Well, I received an email this morning from a man who claims that that he's proved something even stronger, that P is unequal, NP is a corollary of his theorem. I'm not going to read it. I'm not going to read his writing. But I've done my share of that over the years. But it's very easy to fool yourself to think that but if they take a poll of people on the question of P versus NP, they find more people are going to think that that when it's ever settled, someone will find a proof that they're different. That is that non-determinism can do more than determinism. Okay, I don't want to go into the whole definition of what these terms mean, but I'll be glad to if you want me to. But the idea is that the N in NP means non-deterministic polynomial time, and that means that if we could, for example, if we could split every problem up into polynomial many cases, and if we ask each to work on the problem, and then one of them says, "I've got it," and we know the answer. Well, P means that we only that we have only one computer to work with, and we have to keep going until. So anyway, it looks like we have no proof that the non-determinism is going to be better, but most people think that it probably isn't. I'm on the other hand, I'm thinking that it's quite likely that P will equal NP, but that won't be any use to us, because if P, there might exist a polynomial algorithm that does everything, but it might be something that can never be written down. I mean, it can never be embodied. It exists, but only because it doesn't exist. It exists because there are only finitely many obstacles to its existence, and there are a lot of proofs of things that exist when we have no way to actually use that fact. One of the simplest examples is there exists a winning strategy for the first player in hex. But it's only based on a contradiction. Because if it didn't, then we have a contradiction. So for non-constructive proofs, and we know that there exists that if you take any family of graphs that's closed under taking minors of a graph. It means that a minor of a graph means that you collapse an edge and make two vertices come together, or you delete an edge, and by a process of, and any class of graphs, for example, I'm sorry, it's not deleted. Delete a vertex. No. Minus E and mod E. Okay. Well, anyway, like planar graphs have this property, for example, and infinitely many different kinds of graphs. Any family of graph closed under minor, then it's known that there exists a polynomial time algorithm that will decide whether or not a given graph is in this class. It's an n-cubed algorithm, but the algorithm requires access to a list that we know is finite of all the number of cases to test. So in other words, we know there's a polynomial time algorithm for this graph recognition problem, But the only reason we know it is because we know that if God told us what the complete list of cases was, then we have our algorithm. And we know that this list doesn't exist. The list is finite. That's the famous Robinson-Seymour theorem. And so it might be the same with all, with P versus NP. There's an algorithm out there. Maybe you take your formula, you write it down, and you square it and take the remainder with respect to something else in an exclusive order. You have all these possible algorithms that are out there that are polynomial time. How do you know that none of them work? But it might very well be one of exists. We'll have no proof of it. Right? So it's in this category where existence is very different from embodiment, and just knowing that E equals NP might not be of any use to us, because it would just say, well, okay, that means if we only could live in the right universe, somebody might tell us what this algorithm is, but on the other, the 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 10 to the 10th, and that's polynomial time.
Okay, would you like to answer a couple of questions? We appreciate your time you had to us, and we wouldn't like to interfere to your lunch time.
Whatever you want to do. I mean, don't. Anyway, I'm happy with as long as you're happy.
Okay, only one question. Fabrice, please.
Excuse me?
Yes. The last question for end the meeting. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor to ask the last question, especially to you, Professor Knuth.
Okay.
I would like to come again on this problem of quantum computation. You made this comment earlier that there is mathematics and computer science on one side and chemistry, physics, and all this on the other side. But recent trends, like from David Deutsch, for instance, or from Bennett, they tend to say that quantum mechanics is actually a theory of information, and that computer science would just be a particular case of quantum computation. So my question would be, don't you feel that maybe you are missing something, even regarding this P equal NP problem, the determinism, the non-locality, by thinking that quantum mechanics is something else that can be put aside from your concern and interest?
Well, I have no doubt that there are a lot of things I'm missing. And I know the limits of my own intuition. And so I've studied, I've read a lot about quantum computing, and I've read a lot about computing, and I understand computing, and I don't understand quantum computing. I mean, I know that you've got permission matrices, and they, the measurement is supposed to do something. There's these arguments about collapsing. And I personally am more inclined to think of the multiverse, the many worlds hypothesis, where anything for which there's a mathematical formula is possibly true, and people might be living inside of that universe. I'm familiar only with things like the game of life, which is able to simulate all computations at a slow speed, and it's completely deterministic. Well, as far as I understand, I mean, the thing I have trouble with in quantum computing is this idea where you have a physicist in the loop, where you keep repeating it until the physicist said, I've made a measurement. and then after he's made that measurement, then he goes to he changes to another loop. So the physicists exist only in terms of molecules in his brain and whatever inside of his system. That doesn't compute with me. But with the game of life, I know that every computation can be simulated by this discrete system of black and white, live and dead pixels on an inputted grid. And suppose I'm running a simulation of the game of life, and I turn the power off. Have I killed the inhabitants of that universe? That was. I mean, there's some game of life that's sort of a faithful, to any extent you want, replica of this discussion you and I are having this moment. The game of life can simulate the internet and all of the bad jokes in the world and everything all at once, and that is okay. It's a mystery to me, so I don't expect to understand it. But I have no idea how I would deal with it. I mean, writing a good program for a quantum computer, and I believe that there will be a lot of talented people who are geeks in their own way who are good at that. But just because it's called computing doesn't mean that I'm ever going to develop such an intuition, no matter how much I try. I'm not going to stop trying, but I'm not going to give a lot of time trying to stretch my. I'm not telling other people to give it up. All right, so yeah. So I was hoping the last question would be one I could answer again. But I guess the best way to close is just to say, let's celebrate the fact that there are mysteries out there and that we can keep exploring and enjoying the process of learning more.
Okay. A lot of time, and we are so happy to be with you in this meeting. So now Rafael Dávalos are going to say you something. Do you hear me?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much for being with us in SWIT seminars with IT pioneers and leaders. And thank you, Donald Knuth, for being with us in this time. And we appreciate a lot to be with us and to have your time and your experience and your knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rafael.
Okay. We hope you in next seminar.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thank you for starting the series. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Bye. See you next time.
Thank you, Donald.
Ariana,
Thank you.
Please visit me at Stanford.
Yeah. I'm really happy. Thanks. It's an honor.
I think we got through the hour.
We got to the end of the 110 to the 10 to the 10 thing. I was going to type up and mention it, and I just only did it.
I see.
I would have said into the 100, but already infeasible.
Yeah, that's enough. I mean, we had a guy. Record.